G'day there guys, still using shampoo as soap in 2021 here. It's your main man Markee and welcome back to another episode of r/AmiTheA. Now if you love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbecue, and enjoy today's bloody good content. Thank you. Posted by user UnfairFunny3424. Titled, Am I the a-hole for moving out after my sister wanted to triple my rent due to dad cutting me off? My sister is 2 years younger than me. I took a gap year, meaning that when I was in my first year of university, she was applying for her own unis and courses. My sister liked a university about 20 minutes away from mine. She missed out on halls and rent in the area is expensive, so dad said that if I found a flat that could suit the both of us, he would pay for half of the overall rent, and my sister and I could pay a quarter each. Rent in the area on a 2-bedroom starts at around £1,000 per month, so this was a bargain. I found a flat, and my sister and I have been living together since September 2019. I'm now finishing up my 3rd year of university. I've been dating my boyfriend for a year. My boyfriend is a transgender man. I didn't tell my dad because he has expressed transphobic views previously, and it's not his business. My boyfriend is on T for testosterone, and it's administered via injection. My sister found his kit and questioned us on why there was a case containing vials and needles in the flat. We told her the truth, saying she can't tell Dad. Dad rang me a week later, calling my boyfriend a tranny and saying he won't pay to put a roof over a dyke's head, so my sister and I are on our own and paying for the flat. My sister swears she didn't tell him. Frankly, I'm not sure I believe her. I told my sister that I could pay £500 a month, so if she can come up with the other £500, we would continue living here. She says she can't do £500 as she's only budgeted for £250 per month, and that because I'm the one that got us into this, I should be paying £750. I said I can't do $750 and that it's fair that we pay half each. She said she shouldn't have to pay more because of my issue and maintained that I should pay $750. Things got worse and worse at the flat, with the rent deadline getting closer, and my sister insisting that I should pay $750 and not backing down. As things got worse there, I started spending more time at my boyfriend's place. A few days ago, he asked me to move in with him, and I agreed. I've already paid £500 of rent for February, and my boyfriend and I found a studio flat within our budget that will let us move in March. My sister and I are renting on a monthly contract, so I have the option to just not renew it. I've told my sister what my plan is, and she is furious. Says I've screwed her over because she's now got less than 3 weeks to sort herself out, she can't afford the full £1,000 per month alone, and Dad isn't willing to help her because he's convinced she knew my boyfriend was trans and hid it from him. Even just flat shares in the area start at about £600, well over double what she's budgeted. All she can afford right now is petrol for the drive home, well over 3 hours away. She says I'm being unfair, selfish, and cruel, and that I'm intentionally effing her over. Am I the a-hole? Info: Dad lives over 3 hours away with my mum and other sister. My boyfriend is not openly transgender, and Dad has met him and has no idea he was trans before this. Dad has also not entered the flat in months, so he couldn't have snooped around and found the tea on his own. There's a possibility that my sister told our mother or other sister, who then told Dad, so my sister didn't tell him herself, but was still the source of the information. There's no logical scenario that I can come up with where my sister wasn't involved somehow. To me, that seems like the most likely case, that she either did tell him, or a string of people, and it led to him finding out via your sister, tipping off the family with that information. I think it's unacceptable that she shared that information without your permission, and now refuses to own up to it, and instead put the onus on you to fix the problems she's caused. Sounds to me like she has a lot of growing up to do, and mirrors to look into, and ask herself what the bloody hell is wrong with her for doing such a thing. She absolutely knows your father is transphobic, and it sounds like she shares the same sentiment if she refuses to apologize for her actions here. If I were you, OP, I would cut off connection for a while from these people, and I'd just continue on with life and work on yourself from here on out. Go back to them when they decide to take their heads out of their own asses. She got herself into this mess, she's the a-hole here, and she can figure out how to get herself out of it. You, though, are not the a-hole here. Now, in the comments, Little Flamingo 352 says, maybe she should have kept her mouth shut then. Not the a-hole. She caused the mess, knowing what your dad is like, and she still ran and told him. Really impressed with how confident that sis was that she would get her way here, when she was the one who screwed OP over, and OP had a different place to stay. How did she not see this coming? I guess short-sightedness doesn't always have to do with your eyesight. Sure glad the hole is in that side of the boat and not mine. Not the a-hole. There's exactly 100% chance your sister told your dad about your boyfriend. She was the only other family member who knew about it. She made her own bed, let her lie in it. Well, for one, that's not how statistics works, but also it seems weird that if her sister did tell her dad, he's now mad at her too. Edit. To be clear, OP is not the a-hole, and her sister is most likely how it got out. I was being a bit facetious about the way the person phrased it. At the end of the day, even if it wasn't your sister who told your dad, it really doesn't matter. You can't afford to stay there, and your dad has made it so she can't either. None of that is your fault. Transphobes aren't exactly the most rational of people. Her sister could have easily told someone else who told the dad. She may not have intended to let it slip, but gossiped. She still doesn't deserve any kind of pity. She knew how homo-transphobic her family is, and she just spills all the beans? Nope. This is an extremely childish behavior, only she's not a child, and her gossip majorly screwed her sister, possibly for life. And Octopus God says, not the a-hole. It makes no difference that your dad cut you off or why that happened, and it makes no difference whether she told him or not. Fact is, you've always paid half of the rent each because a third party covered the rest. Now that third party isn't paying, I cannot fathom a reason why the 50-50 arrangement should change. She had a chance to get on board and pay her share. This is exactly right. Your father's transphobia, your sister's selfishness, none of it is really important to the issue. And if your sister assumed you'd just pony up the dough because reasons, perhaps this reality check will educate her future choices, not the a-hole. Exactly, she could have paid $500, which is totally fair, but she refused. Her not being able to find and afford a new place or pay the full $1,000 could have been avoided, all because of her own selfishness. She could have 1, not shared sister's boyfriend's info to anyone, or 2, agreed to pay half. The biggest a-hole is bigoted dad, but sister is too for sharing OP's boyfriend's business with others and then refusing to compromise and then getting mad that it all blew up in her face. Posted by user AgreeableRiver7340. Titled, would I be the a-hole for calling CPS on my sister because I disagree with how she's raising her daughter? Making a long story short here, the day after Christmas, my 16-year-old niece, Emma, called me sobbing, begging to come live with me. She said her house was a prison and her parents wouldn't let her be happy anymore. We talked for a while, and what she told me was confirmed as true by my sister when I talked to her. Emma has always had lopsided grades, with A's in English and history, but C's and D's in maths and science. This time last year, she was diagnosed with ADHD, which I knew because I was diagnosed a few years ago, and my sister called me to ask my opinion on how well non-medication treatments worked, since her husband was adamantly opposed to letting Emma take what her doctor prescribed for fear of her becoming addicted. Medication and intuitive living has always worked best for me, but when I was pregnant with my kids and couldn't take meds, I got by with the recommended ADHD diet and exercise regime and a good routine. It turns out my brother-in-law has taken that into hyperdrive and gone full prison guard on Emma's life in order to get her grades up. She has a strict routine that only includes school, studying, exercise, and family mealtimes. She's not allowed any contact with friends outside of school and eats a special diet that doesn't include dairy, caffeine, or sweets of any kind. Everything distracting has been taken out of her room, including all of her books and beloved paintings by my late mother. Her science and math grades have come up to Bs, which my brother-in-law insists that means the routine is working, but still can't be eased up on yet, since she hasn't come to her full potential. The incident that triggered her phone call, she stole her brother's phone while he was sleeping because she's not allowed a phone or unsupervised computer time, was her being banned from celebrating Christmas by the family since it would be a deviation from her routine. I feel like this has fallen into awful territory and has only gone on for so long due to the current craziness. I got my sister on the phone and she broke down crying, saying that she's begged her husband to ease up, but that openly instituting a lighter set of rules or telling Emma to ignore him will absolutely lead to a divorce. She said she's weighed her options, and since her husband would definitely get 50-50 custody of the kids, spurring a divorce to get Emma out of brother-in-law's rules half the time for the next 2.5 years of high school isn't worth the kids being in a broken home and losing her kids half the time, especially with the other two still just 13 and 10. She said she'd work on him, but according to my nephew, my brother-in-law has been even harder on Emma since he found out we talked. I think CPS and the school need to be aware of this, but my dad said it's not against the law to be strict, and my husband says I would be wasting resources calling them since it's not serious enough for the courts to get involved. I just don't know what else to do. I feel like CPS could at least get Emma real treatment. I don't honestly know the family dynamic well enough, or whether CPS will actually solve anything in this family, OP. From what I've read, they're often ineffective in actually solving issues, but if you believe this is the right call in this situation, I believe you wouldn't be the a-hole. Something is better than nothing, and that sounds to me like genuinely abusive behavior by the husband, not just on the child, but on the wife too. He's threatening divorce and to harm the children further if she tries to step in. Jesus, I feel bad for those kids. I don't know what to recommend you do in this situation, but anything to convince him he's destroying his family from the inside out would help. But it also may not help. It may do a lot more harm much faster. This situation sucks, and I hope it gets resolved well for the kids, OP. Not the a-hole if you call CPS, but yeah. In the comments, Elfish47 says, "Not the a-hole, but don't be surprised if CPS doesn't do much. Yeah, this is hyper strict, but I don't know if you can call it abusive. I think you can expect that your niece will flee the house the first moment she gets when she turns 18. Yeah, you should probably talk to your niece and tell her when she's grown up there's a spot in your house because it'll be difficult when she leaves. Edit, I don't think minors are allowed to leave without parental approval. Also, OP's sister is not doing anything to stop this problem as the kid is still facing this harsh treatment, and even worse than before. Why not offer her a home now? She's still a minor in many areas. It might not be legal should her parents not approve. Though I do agree, letting her know she has a safe place and a person to trust is important. I'm not a lawyer, but what about emancipation? Ridiculously high requirements in most places. Like, the niece would need to prove she's completely able to support herself with literally no help in a manner that's completely legal. So like, work a full-time job that pays a living wage wherever they are, at 16. Why would her husband definitely get 50-50 custody? Surely most judges would take the preferences of a 16-year-old teen into account, especially if she was very empathetic that she was miserable with her dad and his awful treatment of her was literally the entire reason for the divorce. I don't think you'd be an a-hole for calling CPS, so not the a-hole. I just doubt it would result in anything changing. Worst case, the family eliminates contact with you. This is what I was thinking as well. The judge took my opinion into consideration when my parents divorced and I was 11, and this was in the 80s. Ended up giving my mum full custody rather than split like he was originally thinking. I'm assuming he's the main breadwinner and all that, and I think it depends on the state if the judge would even listen to her. But because she's under 18, the courts could mandate visitation on all kids and make her go. Not the a-hole, he's abusive, but her best bet is to tell someone at the school because they may have more power, cause CPS, I'm sorry, but CPS sucks a lot of the time, and they drop the ball because many believe that family is best and won't take the kids out unless absolutely forced. And Captain Spacepants says, not the a-hole. This does feel abusive to me, but I'm unsure CPS can or will do anything. Can Emma talk to a therapist or a guidance counselor? It may take third-party, non-family intervention by a specialist for your brother-in-law to see what he's doing here as actually harmful. Emma isn't allowed any outside contact. Maybe I was unclear in my post. My sister said they haven't been able to keep a therapist for her because the two they've already tried wouldn't let her husband run the session, so he fired them. He listened in on all of Emma's school calls and takes her laptop back at the end of the school day so he can make sure she's not deviating from her routine and talking to friends, so she has no way to reach out to a guidance counselor or a teacher. That's what really worries me and makes me think a call to CPS is warranted. Being strict is one thing, but keeping a 16-year-old completely isolated and unable to advocate for herself seems like it rises to the level that a social worker could intervene and potentially force my brother-in-law to ease back somehow. I disagree with the ones saying that this isn't child abuse. Isolating a child from socialization, withholding medication, and exerting control over their entire life is abusive. This absolutely will hurt Emma's mental well-being. CPS may not be able to help, but you can't just sit there and do nothing. Her father is not strict, he's abusive. Make the call, get it on record, send him a message. Do whatever is in your power to do. No judge would force a 16-year-old to spend 50% of her time with a psychological abuser against her will. No doctor will defend her father's actions. Unless he's charismatic and goes before the judge acting like a maligned father, just trying to do his best while his wife and sister-in-law are the ones who are undermining his reasonable steps for his daughter. This kind of abuser is adept at using family court as punishment on top of everything else. Charisma won't make up for ignoring doctors' recommendations for medication though, or not having her see any type of therapist or specialists. CPS and the courts will both take that into consideration. They'll see he's not doing his best if he's ignoring all the professional recommendations. Posted by user Fiction Genres, titled, Am I the a-hole for declining to read my coworker's manuscript because it's young adult genre fiction? So I'm a short story writer who has stories in literary magazines, 2 in an anthology, and am working on my first collection right now. Writing has always been a huge part of my life. I joined an MFA program, but had to leave due to finances. One of my co-workers is also a writer. We talk about how hard writing can be, the fun parts, stories and sentences and ideas strewn on papers around our homes. Lately, she's opened up to me about trying to snag a literary agent. This co-worker writes young adult fantasy, so it's a very different experience and scene. She asked me if I would read her manuscript and give notes. I told her that there is a big difference in what we write, and while I'm sure her manuscript is great, it's young adult genre fiction, which is not my thing. She said, "Are you saying it's beneath you to read young adult or something?" I said no, the craft of writing genre fiction and literary fiction is different. Add to that the age category layer. I said it would be the same if she'd asked me to read and give notes about an adult romance. She said I sounded stuck up and she could smell the MFA on me. And then I saw her Twitter, where she went into this whole rant about how literary fiction authors have huge egos, how YA fiction is derided because it's such a female/woman-heavy industry, and especially since its biggest readers are young women. She kept referring to me as an a-hole coworker, and had a bunch of people ripping apart pieces of my writing based on a short story that I wrote back in college. I saw all this because she sent me a link telling me that I'm the Twitter main character and should probably apologize to her for insulting her book when it's obvious no one cares about mine. I told her that what she did was ridiculously childish bullying, so it's no wonder she's writing young adult fantasy. She probably feels right at home with its main audience. This pissed her off even more, so she blocked me on Twitter. I don't think that what I did was bad. I don't really read a lot of YA, so I wouldn't be able to help her, but am I the a-hole? Not sure how relevant this is, but I'm a woman, not a man. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I might be the a-hole based on my responses and reactions to her. While I don't do YA fiction, I could have thrown her a bone and given her basic feedback. It's not like it would have cost me anything but time and brain cells. So apparently skimming the comments, this is a very heated one, but I'm of the opinion that OP is not the a-hole here. They don't have to do anything for this person. They don't owe them a damn thing, and OP rejecting their request to review their work isn't a personal insult to them, their work, or the YA genre. There's a serious victim mentality being perpetuated by this person. It's as if OP is absolutely denouncing them and their work as beneath them when they simply just don't want to do it. If I don't want to read a book that you wrote, that doesn't make me an asshole. It just means I don't want to do it. That's not an a-hole move in and of itself. I do think if OP didn't want to do it, then they should have just said no. It seems like the devil is in the details where they said more than no. I deem OP as not the a-hole here because the other person sounds like an entitled prick, plain and simple. OP did nothing wrong. In the comments, Funky Orange Penguin says, "Everyone sucks here. She definitely sucks for taking it to Twitter and crapping on your work. I didn't think you were the a-hole until you told her she was writing YA because she's childish and a bully just like her readers. You do seem to think that young adult literature is beneath you or less valuable than other types of literature. I'm assuming that your views had already been noticed by her, despite how much you try to hide them." Edit. The fact that OP dislikes YA fiction isn't why she's sort of the a-hole. She could have just told the coworker she didn't want to do it instead of going on about the craft. OP owes her nothing. Not wanting to read the manuscript doesn't make her the a-hole. Making a dig at the genre and young adults as a whole to put someone down isn't what mature people do. The coworker is insecure, but responding that way doesn't reflect well on OP. Edit 2. OP also never mentioned that the amount of time necessary to review it was the reason why she didn't want to do it. She said she wasn't qualified, which is fair, but never mentioned time as an excuse despite her coworker accusing her of being a snob. It seems to be a very fair concern, so why not bring it up? If OP doesn't look down on YA lit, she decided to lie to hurt the coworker. If she does, OP still stooped to her coworker's level by leveraging something they love to hurt them. It obviously doesn't mean she's the biggest a-hole, but there's definitely a difference between choosing not to take the bait and being a doormat. I think I kinda get by the craft. To take this example to video games, if I made platformers and a friend asked me to take a look at a first-person shooter they were making, I would have no helpful notes. Not because they're better or worse, but because they're different. Also, I don't know if video game creators tend to focus on one genre. I don't know anything. That's the idea I was getting to. Like, you wouldn't ask a shipbuilder to do the inspection on your home renovation. Not because boats are better or worse than houses, but because they're constructed differently, so the person wouldn't know enough about what they're supposed to inspect for.
Yep, I hate to break it to you, but if you ever put your house in water, it'll sink immediately.
Everyone sucks here. Yes, MFA programs do have an elitism problem, But given how many writing professors I've encountered who have no frame of reference for even adult genre fiction beyond a couple of authors or series, they make a point of never having read themselves, I wouldn't trust them to offer helpful, constructive criticism for the same reasons you cited. And you at least didn't offer up any judgment. Well, that is until what she did was ridiculously childish bullying, so it's no wonder she's writing young adult fantasy. She probably feels right at home with its main audience. That's an insult to young adults, and you know it. Better to simply point out that if she can't handle people telling her, sorry, this just isn't for me, without going nuclear, she's going to have a hard time finding agents and editors of any genre who want to work with her. Which she will. Wow, you are so not the a-hole. This coworker is literally cyberbullying you. I hope you report this to HR. I would not be able to focus or collaborate with someone who did this to me. Take screenshots. Also, as a writer, raised by a writer who works in publishing, it's totally legit to pass on giving a manuscript critique at any time for any reason. She asked you to do a lot of work, probably for free, that is highly specialized. Seriously, working editors charge hundreds of dollars an hour for this exact thing. A typical length young adult novel would cost like $2,000 to $4,000 USD for one developmental critique. If you're nationally published and or have formal education to back up your work, you should be charging to do it. Even for friends, family, co-workers or students, charge a discounted rate if you'd like, but never do it for free because it's work. If you were a woodworker, she wouldn't ask you to give her a custom rocking chair for free. You weren't wrong to pass because of discomfort about working outside of your genre either. It's not snobbishness, though snobbishness against YA writing does exist. You were being honest that you felt you couldn't do your best work. Demanding a critique from someone who's reluctant or uncertain is a great way to get a bad critique. G'day there guys, and that's the end of today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed it and were entertained by today's bloody good content. As always, I want to do a quick shout out and a thank you to all my channel members and Patreon subscribers. Your beautiful faces and names will be up on screen right now. Haven't forgot about you guys, sorry I was taking a little break there. So yeah, if you see yourself, give yourself a pat on the back. If you want to be on this screen, there's links down to the description below where you can sign up and help support the channel and all future projects that I'm going to be doing on this one. With all that said, I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to. I'll see you in the next episode, and I do hope you enjoy it. Thank you.